everybody. Welcome to One More Round. It's great to be back. I got Ariel with me. If you don't remember, Ariel was on One More Round like, I don't know, 2 years ago?
It's got to be at least 2 years. Yeah, at least 2 years.
And so, funny story about that. We had met in Arte about maybe 3-4 months prior to that.
Yeah.
And I had just gotten out of the hospital the first time when I had heart failure. And, I didn't want to wait. So let's get back into the podcast. And Hank remembers. Hank's behind the camera there. And I was coughing, still had this terrible cough that was just consistent.
And it seemed like you had a hard time talking.
I did. Yeah, I did. But, I battled through it or whatever. And so we get done and Adela was there. You'll see Adela actually here on the next episode. But he's like, bro, can I pray for you? Yeah. And, I'm a Christian, that, if you've watched this at all, but it's just, it's not like a commonplace thing and where people are like, yeah, can I pray for you? I'm like, yeah, for sure. We prayed together and, that was I'm like, man, that's really cool. So that was kind of the first seed planted, not that we hadn't known each other, but a good seed planted, and then we started playing golf and stuff together. And, and a lot of people probably don't know the full story, and we're going to kind of go into that next, but you guys had helped me out a lot when I was sick the next time in the hospital and going through that. And we had kind of just a conversation. I was looking to make a change. I mean, I'd been in the same industry, sold a company in that industry 15 years, and I wanted to do something that impacted people. You guys helped me, and my perspective was different. And I was just like, hey, I'm kind of interested in what this is all about. And I asked you to meet for coffee, and what was your response to me?
Well, to kind of backpedal on that, I had already known Josh to be just a really good dude, right? I think everybody that's watching this, if you don't know Josh, if you had a chance to meet him, you'll know he's just a good guy. He's one of those guys, that we get a chance to meet, and you're just like, man, that's a good dude right there. And so I didn't know how we were going to ever connect in business because he was already, doing his own thing. He was successful already, and, and so I didn't know how we were gonna connect ever in business. My wife had the ability to take care of him, making sure that he and Jess, had things dialed in, when he was, sick and stuff, or, in the hospital. And I didn't know how, and, I had been praying and talking about man, this is the kind of business partner I'm looking for, the goal for Ariel Financials to build this company up to a 9-figure company, $100 million by 2027. And, I don't ever want to be the guy to do it by myself. And one, because I believe having partners around you with different experiences is an asset. But I'm like, well, who is this person I'm looking for? And Josh, I remember thinking to myself, Josh checks a lot of those boxes, right? The type of business partner that I'm looking for that's going to help us build this company. But Josh already had a successful business. Josh had health issues. So he's probably this is probably the furthest thing from his mind, right? And then, Josh starts getting better. I'll let him, you guys probably know the story about, this his heart and stuff. And he's out of the hospital. And I'm just thankful and happy that he's recovering now, right? He's past it, and he's on the other side, and he's now can be dad and be husband, right? And I honestly, beyond that, hadn't really even thought about Josh becoming part of Ariel Financial, because again, he was already successful. He didn't really need to partner up with us for anything. And but I had been praying for a lot of what Josh offered, right, without specifically naming him. But the more as time went on, and I would consider it, and I'd be thinking about things, I did have a couple of moments where I was like, man, I wonder if, and again, he's already dealing with his own stuff. I wonder if Josh would ever be open to partnering with us in some capacity. And, I just kind of left it at that. And I'm like, right now he's just got to get better. And we'll see if something happens down the road. Well, then I get a text from this guy, and I check my phone, and he's like, hey, man, me and my friend are considering getting into the life insurance business. Can we have a conversation about it? And I remember I was in my bedroom at that time. I was looking out the window and I was kind of looking at my phone and I was like wow, crazy. I was, I had put it out there, I had conversations with, with the Lord about it, and, without getting too religious, I was just, like put it out there. And for him, no more than maybe a day or two, for him to text me that, I was like, wow, that's powerful. So then my response to Josh was like, bro, I had literally just prayed that somehow that we could figure out how to be in business together a couple of days ago. And so that's kind of where we went, and that's kind of how we started. And we had a few meetings after that.
I mean, so in the beginning, like I couldn't leave the house, right? So I got home from the hospital, and then I was basically housebound. So you'd come over to the house, and me, you, Adela, and Eric, we were there, and we literally talked at my kitchen table for 5 hours.
Yeah.
It felt like 30 minutes, and as we continued the conversation, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But like I just remember, one of the things I really wanted was to make a difference to people, and I wanted to work with people I really liked and enjoyed, and that were good quality people. And to a degree, I had done a little bit of that and then there was a degree where there were some people that I wanted to get out of my life, and I can't really say it any other way than that. And I'm like, gosh, I really like you guys, because I'll never forget, when you came, because you came the original, I think you would text me in the hospital, but then you came when I was in the hospital with the heart transplant and all that, and you came with a breakfast burrito. Remember that? Oh, yeah. So Filiberto's, if you guys aren't in Arizona, think of a breakfast burrito the size of, my forearm here.
Yeah.
He brings that in, and hospital food sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, I ate the same fajitas almost every day because it was the only thing that I really could tolerate. And they brought in that burrito. I chowed the whole thing down. I think you took half of yours back.
I had to take half of mine
Adela
home. I looked over at this guy, and he was like almost done with his.
And you guys brought me some books and stuff, and it was just, there was that connection. So when we connected and like you shared with me what the vision for Arrive was, and I was like, I don't have any business knowledge in this space. I didn't.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'd love to be able to help. And, so long story short, now we're almost a year into it. It'll be a year in December. And it's just been, honestly, nothing but a lot of fun and good times. But part of the reason I wanted to have this conversation today is you got a really cool story. I mean, a really cool story that you probably don't get an opportunity to talk too much about. But as I've heard, I mean, I don't know, probably 100 different stories that kind of pieces of your life. It's pretty intriguing because, I mean, you're a first generation American, correct?
Yeah, both my parents were born in Mexico.
And I mean, I don't know, tell me a little bit like about the family life. Was like entrepreneurial type thing?
I mean, my parents, both of them worked hard. My mom was amazing, making a home, filled with love. My dad, had typical guy challenges, typical issues. He didn't really have the entrepreneur spirit. He loved his family. And one of the things, so the best thing that my dad gave me was and I try to do this for my kids, was the ability to know that whenever my dad showed up, things were going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it didn't matter how much trouble I got into. It didn't matter what was going on. I always had the confidence of knowing that whenever my dad showed up, things were going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And so I think with that mentality, even though, again, my dad had his own challenges, I think me having that in my background, knowing that no matter what, my dad was always going to be there and I was always going to have my back, since a kid, like, it just made me feel like I could really do anything. Mm-hmm. Whether it was my dad taking me around to his buddies and cutting their grass for $5 a yard. I was probably like 7 or 8 years old at this time, right? Obviously, I had to, fill it up with gas, the lawnmower, and, do all. But back then, it was 99 cents a tank or whatever, a gallon or whatever it was. So I grew up with that loving household. In the 20s, my 20s though, my parents got a divorce, and I always thought, like, well, I'm in my 20s, my parents got a divorce, it's not that big of a deal. But believe it or not, man, like when your parents get a divorce, no matter what age you're at, it definitely impacts you, because then it changes the dynamic of the home. It changes the dynamic of mom and dad. You know, you're so used to growing up them together, and all of a sudden they're separate, and you know, it's just
Yeah, Christmases and
yeah, it
holidays are
just makes things
different.
weird, and you know, then
Conversations about the others different.
yeah, and then you know, my dad, you know, he got sick, so he passed away, you know, at the age of 53. And to see your dad slowly deteriorate, you know, it's just tough. You know, it's tough to see your dad slow, you know, just shrink, and so that was tough. Um,
So what was it like? Because I mean, you had that kind of background. I mean, and today you have a really successful business that you and your wife run together. Like, where did that begin? Like for you?
well, like I've always had the so like growing up in our side of our little town, it seemed like there was the well-off families, and then there was everybody else, right? And I used to always walk, and you used to have to walk by those neighborhoods to get to the high school. And I used to always think like, what do these guys do? What do their parents do? Why do they have swimming pools? Why do they have the newest Jordans that just came out? Like, what do they like? What's the difference? What do they know that my parents don't know?
Yeah.
And so that always, since a little kid, stuck with me. And I remember, you know, we used to live in an apartment growing up, and my only thoughts on money was my parents fighting about it. Like literally today, I can see my mom and my dad arguing about money and not being able to do things, or not being able to pay the bills, or not being able to pay rent, and just being a kid, and like, you know, having those thoughts to myself like, one, is there any way I can help? But two, like, why?
Yeah.
Are we the only family that fights about money? So then fast forward, when I had the opportunity to learn about money in this industry, I fell in love with it, man, because I'm like, wait, I get to learn the stuff that my parents didn't know that they should have known, and I get to teach other people about it. Like, sign me up, I'm in.
Yeah.
And that's where just really initially the love for what we do got started.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I can relate a lot. Like when I was growing up, I grew up in a small town, Safford. So Bakersfield is much bigger than Safford, right?
Yeah.
We were a tiny little town, but it's like the people that had money were the ones that owned the businesses, right? There's a guy named Kopanicki who owned the McDonald's in our town. There was Kimpton family that owned the auto dealership, and they just did well. Everybody else, for the most part, either worked for the mine or they worked for the prison. And that was just kind of what I saw. And they all made about the same amount of money. And then you had these other guys. I'm like, So I can relate to that.
Yeah.
And then, so you got in the financial industry, and was it like life insurance to start, or?
Yeah, we only did a while. We were only taught to do life insurance because the company that I was with, the practice company back then, that was their primary source of business, was life insurance. So they only really taught us about life insurance, term, and, you know, and IUL, and that's all we sold. And so, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, I had, you know, when you start to grow up, you see people pass away, and then you see people struggle with how to take care of those costs, those fees, right?
Yeah.
And so even if it was just life insurance, I still fell in love with it because I was like, man, why doesn't everybody have a policy? It's you can get a 10-year term in your 30s, 40s for 30, 40 bucks, 20 bucks.
I mean, ordered $250,000 for a 32-year-old girl that was, I think, $33.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even the basic stuff on that, I was like, man, how come everybody doesn't have a policy? Why, you know, in Arvin, the city I grew up in, it's like, which is a, you know, very little suburb of Bakersfield, but it's like you used to see car washes every weekend. Every week, oh, so and so passed away. Where's another car wash? Hey, so and so passed away. We're selling food plates, and it never, you know, I was just like, why don't they have life insurance? Right? And honestly, I didn't even learn about life insurance because my parents never taught me about it because they didn't have any until I got into the industry. And then I was like, wow, this is like no brainer.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to have a policy.
And you kind of did well from the beginning in the industry, if I'm not mistaken, right? You kind of took off in the first 5 years pretty well.
Well, like my first 30 days in the business, I did like 46 appointments. And I just wanted to learn. I was just like a sponge, right? I was wanting to sit down in front of anybody that would give me the time of day, because I was that passionate about doing my part and making sure that people at least knew about it. I didn't care if they bought. Now, the cool part is because I think they felt my passion and my genuineness for wanting to help people. I would probably say if you're in sales, my closing ratio is probably like 98%. And it wasn't because I was the greatest salesman in the world. I was just adamant, like, bro, you got a family. You need to get life insurance at a minimum. Your whole family should be insured, but you are the one that goes to work every day to take care of the people that live here. And so it wasn't that I had so much success right away, because honestly, to be honest with you, I didn't make a whole lot of money in my first 5 years. Thank God my wife had a good enough job that, we were able to get by. I still had to pick up a part-time job and work at UPS, as an unloader from 3 in the morning to 9 in the morning, because it provided a steady paycheck. We got paid every week, got, the benefits from it. But it allowed me to free up my days still so that I could still build this business. And eventually we started to have success. But, at that practice company, I was such at a small commission level that, I was dumb. I didn't know I was getting paid pennies, and somebody was keeping majority of the money. And so, as much as I was selling, I wasn't actually making very much money.
So it was like your education period. You just didn't know it at the time.
It was the cost of learning. I call it the cost of learning, the cost of, that was my master's degree, is I paid it up front and in full via basically giving up my commission.
And it's so cool when you put it like that, because if you really think about classic, right? You think about a cobbler, right, who learns to do shoes, or you think about somebody who takes on a trade of their family.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that person makes a ton of money doing that. Or my dad, who went and got his apprenticeship as an electrician at the mine. He took a pay cut to do that. I think he was making like, I don't know, $14, $15 an hour, right?
Yeah.
Not very good money. But he did that because eventually he was able to get a job that paid a lot of money. So you were able to do that and invest your time and to learn the trade, and then things changed. So like, what changed exactly?
Well, just to hold on for a quick second, you got to understand at this same time, so I'm a vision guy. I have the gift of being able to see 3, 5, 10 years down the road, right? And I can piece stuff together that will make that happen. And so my wife doesn't. She's got amazing gifts. That's not one of them. So having to tell my wife that, like, I promise, honey, I'm working. And it's going to pay off someday, just not today. Right? And having to sell her. So that's where I had to sell. Having to sell her, like, hey, just roll with me. Just trust me. And her having to be a buffer between everybody that is telling her, hey, what is your husband doing? And still us having our internal family arguments, because that husband and wife have. But she was a strong enough person that she was able to buffer a lot of the heat she was getting from maybe her parents, from her, brothers, anybody else that was like, why doesn't he just go get a normal job? Who does he think he is? He doesn't have a degree. He didn't come from a business background. His parents didn't own a business. Like, just go get a job. And so that was a lot of, but you know what? That same story was another reason why I was like, I can't quit, bro. Like, if I quit now, I will completely look like a fool.
Yeah, and I mean, you might not forgive yourself.
Yeah.
I can relate on so many levels there, because, as you know, a little bit of my story. So I started Aftershock, and I think it was 2008. And I had left the corporate job. I hated it. But I went out on my own. I'm going to make this. I didn't even know what this was going to be. Happened to be marketing. And it was tough, man. That first 5 years, there wasn't a lot of money. There was a lot of just working my butt off, not making the money. And Jessica, my wife, I mean, she, we had those conversations too, but she believed in me. Like, I had to your point, like, I had to sell her, hey, this is what I'm doing. You see, here's why I'm taking this action, all this kind of stuff. And although there were times where it was tough, like not having money to do the things that we wanted to do, or even going into a little bit of debt that was business debt and stuff, like, there was that thing. She just believed in me. So what I would say to anybody who's watching this, it's a woman married to an entrepreneur guy. Hey, it's going to pay off dividends if you support him.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean he's going to always make the right decisions or
Yeah.
that he doesn't need to listen sometimes.
Yeah.
Because trust me, I needed to listen at times.
100%.
And eventually I did. But that support means more than you ever know. And for you guys, keep at it and sell the dream, sell the dream, sell the dream, and make sure that your family is always what you're working towards. Because
there's an old saying that I read one time, and I still think about it every day, and it says, when you're married to a woman that bets her life on you, you better make sure that she wins.
yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Right? Like when you got a woman that is willing to bet her life on you, you better make sure she wins.
That's huge.
And I still think about that every single day. I'm like, even if it's, we're in the process right now of purchasing a home and stuff, it's little things like we've owned a lot of homes. We've lost a lot of homes. That's a whole nother story.
Right.
But, being able to do those things for, the people that you love like that's making sure that person wins. Being able to take my wife out of a job that was driving her nuts, that she was losing her hair from, and being able to give her a lifestyle where we have no boss. We make our own schedule. We travel together all over the world, Europe, wherever we want to go, all over the United States. A lot of it on somebody else's dime.
Yeah.
And to be able to do those things together, man, it's now those years of, us, at the very beginning, to be able to see her winning, not just me winning, see her winning.
Yeah.
Is that's my payoff.
Yeah, and it's a powerful thing because I've gotten to watch now for a year. You guys work together.
Yeah.
And you have completely different skill sets and completely different things you do for the company.
Yeah.
But they complement so well.
Yeah.
And it's cool because, in this next episode that we're going to be shooting here in a little bit, we're going to bring her on. And she doesn't like to be on the camera, but she's so darn well spoken and so smart.
Yeah, she is.
It's like because she does our training about half the time that we do every Tuesday. It's either you, her, and then every once in a while it's like one of the other guys. And she freaking crushes it when she's talking about, when she's telling stories, when she's talking about specific products and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And she's got the gift. She's in there right now on a call with the client. Yeah. Guarantee that client is not only locked in for the rest of their life, but they're going to do something more, that's best for her. And then you are a marketing genius. Like I've watched it. I've seen, if somebody were to look at you on a daily basis, man, Ariel, he just kind of kicked back. I'm like, he sure.
I get that a lot.
But all he has to do is pull up his Instagram, like, there's a lead, there's a lead,
100%.
there's a lead, there's a lead. Here's another rollover. Here's a friend. Because you're so good at the social side, the social game of life and marketing, because you care about people.
Yeah.
So it's like that complements each other too. So that's something I would say to any entrepreneur that are married. Find a way that you guys complement each other and understand that you're going to have your own strengths. Because Jessica, my wife, she's got strengths I just don't have, and I know that. Yeah. And man, she's crushing her own company right now.
Yeah, she is.
It's so fun to watch.
Yeah, she is. She's kicking butt.
She's a great testament to somebody who's had multiple businesses, always made a profit, but sometimes she's worked so hard and not made the kind of money that or even close to what she should. I mean, she could have gotten a job at McDonald's and made more, and she would tell you that. And then now to see a business that's thriving and she's crushing it because of all the things
she paid the price already,
exactly.
Right? She paid for her master's degree.
Yep.
And now she's got all those skill sets that she learned and dialed in and fine-tuned, and boom, you're seeing the result of that today. And that's where, like, partnering with you, right? Like, even though you don't have a financial related background in business, you have a business background. And I think I said this one time where, talk about, like mentorship, like especially with guys, right? Our egos are so big, and it's like, well, no, I'm not the mentee, I'm the mentor, right? When you really are trying to do something big, that mentality has to go out the window, or else you're going to keep yourself small, because that comes from a scarcity mentality. Yeah. And I said one time, like, Josh, with you and I, it's not about being a mentor or mentee. It's, what did I say?
Mutual mentorship.
Mutual mentorship, where it's like, yeah, in this industry, I'm a stud. Like I have that master's degree in this industry on how to build a business. But Josh also has a master's degree on his own right in other businesses that I can use what he brings to the table and a different perspective on things to help make this accelerate in growth, just because now you've got what I like to say is that we're both in the conference room. I got somebody to throw the ball with back and forth, right? Because it's hard to play catch when there's nobody to throw the ball back to you. So when he and I can be in a room, even if we're not necessarily talking the whole time, but the ability to play catch with somebody and have an idea and run it by somebody right away, it helps. It creates like a synergy that it just fuels growth, man. And you know, I know we've got other things to cover, but I think that's what really excites me coming into 2025 is that this year was really, to make it simple, it was you rolling with training wheels.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, I need to keep my balance. Like, I need the training wheels because they help me stay upright. They keep me from falling. Well, now the training wheels are going to be just about off.
Right.
Now you get to really flex, really start to dive in, and that is going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, you know, to that point, and then I have something I was going to go to. I will say one of my gifts, and I don't know why I have it, I've never been afraid to fail and to lose at the moment. I don't like it. Like, it doesn't feel good.
It sucks.
I hate that.
It still sucks.
But I have always been willing to get in there and grind. And I knew that because I built companies that I knew nothing about before. I built a digital agency. I didn't know anything about digital marketing in 2008. It was brand new. I built a Regenerate IV, an IV company that, did super well for a long time, and I knew nothing. I had no medical background, but I threw myself into it, and I made a lot of mistakes in both of those. And in this, I've made some mistakes. Now, to your point, like, gosh, having that mentorship, like you're like a big brother, but you're like a mentor to me in this business, to where I come in here all the time and I'm like, hey, bro, I've been thinking about this. Because I'm always thinking, like, how do I get my better? And I'm like, I've been thinking about this, and what do you think about this idea? And blah, blah. And you can be like, oh, well, I've tried that, or why don't you think about it like this, or what do you think about that? Or sometimes like, oh, that's a good idea. And then we have dialogue about it. And that's huge. That's an accelerator.
Yeah.
I never had that in my previous companies. Yeah. So it's really a testament to the right platform and you and Adela's knowledge that allows someone like me to come in and have much faster success.
So let me ask you, would you consider this year a success, a so-so year, or a failure?
I consider it a success. The reason now, it's not about the money or the amount.
Well, let's just
people.
clarify that. He's going to make like 25 to 30 grand this month. But anyways, yeah, it's not about the money. Go ahead.
No, it's, well, I don't quantify it in money. What I quantify it in is I've really become an expert in a lot of the things that we offer in the last year.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I wasn't. And I was learning a lot. And I was trying to figure out, who do I best serve? What products best serve that person? And understanding the nuances between the products and what estate planning does and how it helps somebody who's in their 40s opposed to someone who's done super well that's got their stuff. And that, to me, it's been a success because I've learned so much, and I was a ton to learn. But that's been a success. And yeah, obviously, we get paid commissions on the things that we do and stuff, and I've made a little bit of money. But the reality is, I consider it a success because I have learned something I didn't know before, and I've been able to help a lot of friends and family.
Yeah, you have.
With those things, and that's huge to me.
Well, here's the cool part about this guy, right? Like I was saying earlier. So Josh has spent the entire year, and yes, he's going to have a great month, but there was a lot of months where he wasn't doing anything, right? He was learning. And so he spent this entire year building up that base. And like I was saying, really trying to understand and redo his swing in this industry, right? So I'm excited going into 2025 because he's going to, like I said, he's going to be able to flex now. Now it's not just trying to get the ball 200, 250 yards out. Now it's like, let me dial it in here. Let me hit the ball here. Let me put it on the fairway over here because it's going to set up my next shot and make it easier. That's what 2025 is going to be for Josh, and he's one of the reasons why I'm really excited about 2025 and beyond. But it's cool, man, to see this guy's growth. The fact that he was dead last year, like, I know I say it plainly, but there's no other way to put it. My guy here was dead.
Yeah, I mean,
He flat, like he was not just once, a bunch of times, right?
twice, yeah. September 11th and September 14th.
Yeah, he died, and thank God he's still here. But to be able to celebrate that and to see him and I appreciate when I see a guy struggle and fight through it because everybody has to go through that, but not everybody's willing to get through it to see the other side of it. So I appreciate to see a guy come in, get humble. He's already a humble guy, but the business will humble you in general, and then fight through it and get on the other end of that to where now he's going to really start to feel like the base is there. Now it's just like rocket fuel.
Absolutely, and I came into this wanting to help people, and you have to learn any trade you're in. You have to learn. You got to become an expert to help people in Max, and that's what it's all about.
Well, I think that's what made it so natural for you, bro, is that you already help people. Like whether it's in this industry, whether it's just Josh being Josh, like that's just what you do. That's part of your makeup.
Unless I'm on a golf course, I'm helping.
No, the golf course, like you better watch out because clubs might start flying, but that's a whole different side of Josh that I appreciate from a distance, right? But
away from the clubs.
That's one of the things that, like, it was easy for him because he already has a heart to help people. It's just figuring out his way of doing it in this industry.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, man. And I don't want to step away from the fact where, you guys had built up a business. You said you got your training behind you, and you got the reps in, and then you became great. But then you're like, oh, you went into your own business. How was that transition? And did you ever want to be a business owner?
So when I left the practice company was good because it taught me how to look for talent. It taught me how to sell the products that we were offering. Even though my knowledge on the products is very limited because that's not where they really taught you. The individual that actually got me to the industry, he and I were childhood friends growing up together. Used to spend the night at each other's houses and stuff, and we both played football together. And he's like, "Hey man, I want to start my own company. This is what I want to do." And I'm a loyal guy. I got into it because I liked him and we were friends, and I wanted to learn about money, and I was going to be able to have a bigger impact helping this guy build his own company. And so I'm like, "Yeah, bro, like I'm here with you. Like I'm a loyal dude. What do we got to do?" So we left together, and I helped him start his own company and get things going. And it helped me because it helped me learn the back end of business, contracts, and us getting dialed in with different investment companies, insurance companies, and learn all those back office things that you don't get to learn on the other side. But what I found is that he ideally wanted to make what we left, make it his own way of doing it, but keep it basically the same to where I don't want to say it wasn't about the client, but we weren't, in my eyes, going to be able to provide the type of service to our clients that I thought they deserved. And, my wife and I were out there, and, at this point, my wife was, she was still working, but, she was seeing my struggles in helping him going. And, from her outside perspective looking in, she saw me building his business while he was not building his business. While we were in Phoenix years ago looking to open up an office here, he was on vacation. And it just and then a few times where my commissions weren't being taken care of. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but make a long story short, he forced me to reluctantly become a business owner where I was completely happy just being a guy that was making an impact and being a number 2 or number 3. Like I was completely content.
Yeah, it's funny when you were saying that.
Sorry, the back must have moved closer to your legs. Set it a little further. There we go.
Yeah, it's funny when you were saying that. I had laughed here, so if you saw that in camera, I wasn't laughing at you. I was thinking about an analogy. You were talking about him, moving a company. And it's like, I want to make all these changes, but it's basically the same thing. It's kind of like taking, Twinkies out of a package, right? And then repackaging it and calling it something else.
Yep.
It's still not good for you. It's just in a new package.
Yeah.
And, I remember you telling me the story about you and Adela. You were driving home from an event you were out here, and whoever it was off gallivanting in the world, and you're like, we got to do something else. And then when you decided that you were going to go into business, like, you guys had a conversation about, we're going to figure out what we like and what we don't like, and we're going to create what now is Arrive. So what did that conversation look like initially? Because you didn't offer everything we offer at Arrive now.
Yeah, so we actually were running an event out here at some hotel. I think it was downtown Chandler. I can't remember exactly where it was at. To be honest with you, I don't remember. Anyways, so Adele and I are driving home. My buddy's on vacation. He's in Mexico somewhere, and one of the things that my wife brings to the table at this point, she was really considering coming on board full time with me, is my wife is super organized. Adela's super organized, super structured, really detail oriented, where I'm just the other guy. That's just not my skill set. And so on the way home, driving back home to Bakersfield, 8-hour drive, we had 8 hours to talk this over. We basically she pulled out a yellow pad, and we just started spitting balling ideas on what we wanted a company to look like, what we didn't like about what was going on, what we had experienced with other companies. And we said, well, if we are going to start a company, I would like it to be based off of these things on the left-hand side, where these were all the things that we hoped and wished for that companies would be like that are not. And so we ripped that paper in half, and I remember her just kind of just throwing it right there by her feet. And we just started talking about the idea of, because I had experience in now helping my buddy out. This is where the benefit came from. Even though it didn't work out, I learned the business side of things, and I started saying, well, I think I can make a few calls. I think I know how to do it through the state. I think I know how to get this all done. And now she could help with all structuring and everything. And basically that car ride is where Arrive Financial was born, out of frustration at that point. Really is what it was, is this company was born out of frustration.
Yeah, and it's so common where I see businesses start out of that, like things they just can't stand about what they're currently doing. And I know we've talked about it. Like, you were never like, I'm going to be this entrepreneur. You're like, dude, I would have much rather just stayed in a company and made lots of money and commissions and all that stuff. And to hear that, and then to see you today, like, nobody'd know that. Like, if I were talking, like, oh yeah, Ariel's been an entrepreneur his entire life, and he knows how, to build companies and all that stuff. So it's amazing how much you can grow when you're forced into a position. You got to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and because the hard part about being an entrepreneur, and like with the Arrive Financial is because we still had to make money to take care of our family, right? So it's trying to figure out how to lay down the tracks as you're still pushing the train across the tracks, as opposed to being somewhere where the tracks are done and all you got to do is figure out how fast you can push that train across.
Yeah.
Well, part of what I'm saying about the tracks is your family, your business, your family obligations, your business obligations, and making sure that they work as you're still trying to help people out to make sales. And I now, looking back, if I had to be honest and ask myself what we have gone through to get where we are today, would I have done it again? I don't know, man.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
It's interesting hearing you say that now, right, today, because like, you guys have built a very successful company, and it's going to get way bigger. Like, again, 2027, our goals are a 9-figure company.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you that same question in 2027, when we reach those goals, and you're going to be like, oh yeah, of course I'd do it again.
Yeah.
So it's funny when you're in that part of the journey, that you're like, oh man, it's been a lot of work when you look backwards. But you're not a look backwards kind of guy. Like, this is probably the first conversation you've had about the past in a while.
Yeah.
Because we're both not like that.
Yeah.
So, no, this is
definitely, I have a forecasting mentality where I will look back if I need to to draw wisdom from, to draw experience from, but my vision is always in the future.
Absolutely. Well, no, this was fun. I'm glad we got a chance to do this, and you know, we get to bring the superstar, the secret power of Arrive
She
Financial here
is
on.
the secret sauce of Arrive Financial. She is the brainiac. You know, Josh and I are just the pretty faces, but she is the engine that makes the pretty faces be able to go out there and you know, and market this business that we have, this amazing, beautiful business that we have that we use to change lives. And I don't say that lightly. There's a lot of people out there like, oh, we change lives. I don't say that lightly. Like, it changes lives. When we have a chance to sit down with you and you have a chance to sit down with Josh and just really go into detail as far as what we do as a company, I mean, we've had grown men cry at our desk when we put that retirement game plan together for them, and their first thoughts or first words out of their mouth is, "Are you telling me I can retire?" And the dude's just bawling. I'm talking about a 50-year-old man, muscles, dude works out, he's got rough hands because that's the type of job he has, and he's crying at our desk because we just put the game plan together for him, and we just figured out right then and there that he's going to be able to retire and actually get a chance to enjoy life.
No, that's something that really helps people. And you know what? Everybody wants to get to that point in their life. And if you have the right plan, you have the right people and knowledge and access to companies like ours, you can do it. Anybody can do it.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Now, this is awesome, man. I appreciate you taking the time.
It was fun. It was good.
We will be back here. New episode will be out here in a couple of days with Adela, and make sure you tune in because we're going to get into the weeds. We're also going to go a little broad, and we're going to talk about family life. We're going to talk about building a business with family, living for today, and making sure you're taking care of tomorrow. So tune in. We'll see you all then.
Thank you, guys.